Happy Sunday morning, folks. Um, Let me tell you our text, and then I'll tell you our prayer requests. Give me just a second here. Okay. Our text is, oh, my font's a little small. Let me blow this up a little bit so I can see it. Numbers 13:20. Numbers 13:20. While you're turning there, I'll tell you our prayer requests. I think I've spoken with everyone this morning except Brienne, who's in Ohio. So I think we've probably already spoken about all these prayer requests, but let me just remind you. First of all, pray for Rianne's safe return and that the repairs and the insurance situation with her car is not such that it is beyond, her capabilities, and that she has some peace of mind and gets through this okay and gets home safely and has a wonderful time while she's in Ohio visiting friends. Keep in mind Paula, who everything seems to be doing exactly what it ought to be doing as far as the doctor's plan goes. So there's some pain and discomfort with the hardware that she's having to deal with, and so just ask that God helps her with that. Help Sister Elaine and Donnie as they help her. Just let everything go smoothly without any kind of problems. Pray for Sister Elaine, who's sick today. She has a bad ear infection. Plus, she thinks that she needs some adjustments made to her meds because she's experiencing some symptoms, some side effects. Sister Teresa is sick today with a really bad cold. She's had a sore throat. So let's help her. And pray for me. I cut my finger a little bit ago, and it's slowing me down this morning. It's not a bad cut, but I can't do much with this finger until it, makes sure it's you know sealed itself off, and quit leaking my motor oil everywhere. Like I said, it's not a really bad cut, but it's just inconvenient. Slow me down. So just pray that that's okay, no infection or anything. Then pray for my sister-in-law Joanne with her bad situation and tough things she's dealing with, trying to learn life anew and trying to get the help she needs to be able to swallow, as well as trying to learn how to live without having strength on one side of her body. Pray for Sarah and her diminishing capacity. Pray for my grandfather, my mom's dad and stepmom. He's recovering from that back, those fractures where he fell and broke vertebrae in his back. And last we knew, a couple of days ago, they still hadn't set up rehab yet. And he's not going to get better if it doesn't get that. Of course, Nana, she's dealing with progressing dementia. So just pray for them. Okay. Let me read our text and then we'll pray for the sermon and we'll pray over those prayer requests. Lord, let's see. Numbers 13:20 says, and what the land is, whether it be fat or lean, whether there be wood therein or not, and be of good courage and bring of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time of the first ripe grapes. I want to draw your attention to the first line, and what the land is. This is the last verse where Moses is given instruction to the 12 spies. He says, I want you to go look at the land, see what the land is. So my title today is, and what the goal is. And what the goal is. Lord, we love you. Let your spirit help us understand the word today, to be made stronger and better by it. Put your hand on Sister Paula. Help her to heal up. Let her come through this with no problems or long-term issues. Help Donnie and help Sister Elaine as they help her. Put your hand on Sister Elaine. You see the symptoms she's dealing with her med plus her ear infection. Heal that. Put your hand on Sister Teresa. Heal that nasty cold and sore throat that she's been dealing with. Put your hand on Rianne. Bring her back home safely. Let her have a good time over there, God, and make it home without incident. And God, you see the situation with her car where she had that little accident and went off the road because of the ice. We ask you, God, to let that, unfold smoothly without any, stress or anxiety or long-term problems for Sister Rianne, her finances, her car, and so on. Put your hand, God, on Joanne, and as she struggles, Lord, with the diminished capacity and the weaknesses in her body because of that injury last spring. Put your hand on Sarah, help her deal with, her dementia. make sure she's got all the help she needs. Put your hand on Papa, Nana, Nana. Both of them have really serious situations to deal with. God, both he needs rehab because he fell and broke vertebrae in his back, and she's dealing with dementia. We just ask you, Lord, to help them through this. God, put your hand on my finger, let it heal without any kind of problems, and so I can get back to working and doing all the stuff that I have to be doing. Put your hand on the sermon today in Jesus' name. Amen. What happened to the 10 spies that came back defeated even before the fight ever happened? Did they bring back a false report? Some would say that they brought back a false report or a one-sided report. And I would say that's not the case. Did they carry out the mission Moses sent them to do? I would say that for the most part, they did. They went to spy out the land, and they brought back a report of what was in fact in the land. Some would say, well, they came back and they gave a negative report, a bad report. They did, but what is the negative part? Is the bad part, the negative part that they got in trouble for, was it all the dangers of the giants, the walled cities, all those things they talked about that were bad in the land? Was that the part that Moses was unhappy with them saying? What happens to people that once had power, once had spark in their step, once had passion in their eye? What happens to them when they no longer do? I say they allow the wrong information to dominate their minds. Not incorrect information, necessarily, not at first, though it can lead to a skewed and negative, out of balance view, negative view of things. But I think it starts with just focusing on the wrong information. Moses, I want to tell you that today when Moses sent those 12 spies out there, including the 10 that got them, in a situation where they had to stay in the wilderness another 40 years, including those 10. He didn't ask them to go look only at the positive stuff over there. He didn't say, just go tell me about the grapes. Just go find out about the milk and honey. Just go find about the beautiful forests and those wonderful towns we're going to get to inhabit and inherit and take, I guess. It's not like they came back saying the negative aspects of the land. And it's not like Moses didn't ask for those things. I'm going to start at verse 18 and read you those 3 verses up to the verse we had for our text. He said, and see the land, what it is. That sounds like he's asking for an honest report. I want you to look at actually what's there. Tell me what it is. I want to know about the people that are living there, even if they're giants. I want to know about them, whether they be strong or weak. If they're strong, that's actually bad for us because that means it's going to be hard to take the land. But I want to know about it. If there's a lot of them, if they're few, or if they're many. If there's a lot of them, which means they're going to have armies, I want to know that too. I want to know what the land is. Tell me what it is. Verse 19. And what the land is that they dwell in. Tell me about where they live, whether it's good or bad. I want to know if it's some good land or I want to know if it's bad land. I want to know if it'll grow crops or if it's barren and dry and like a desert. I want to know. I want to know about the cities they dwell in, whether in tents or in strongholds. Notice he's asking for both. Tents would be easy. We can easily go in and take a land where all they have to defend themselves are walls of fabric. But if they've got strongholds, walled cities, well, I want to know that too. Verse 20, this is our text. And what it is, whether it be fat or lean, whether there be wood therein, or whether it's just desert. There's no forest at all, if it's just barren wasteland. Now, watch this part. And be ye of good courage, and bring the fruit of the land, which they did. They did bring the fruit. Now the time was the time of the first ripe grapes. But that one line, be ye of good courage, that's where the problem happens. Some have said they came back and they did not tell the good. That's not, they didn't tell, they told the bad instead of the good. That's not what happened. They told the bad and the good. Some would say, well, Moses didn't tell them to go look at all the dangers that were there, and the walled cities and the giants and how big the armies were. But he did. He asked for an honest report. So them coming back and saying the negative things and the positive things, there's no way he would have been mad at them for that, or that God would have been mad at them for that if they had obeyed and just done what they had asked, because Moses clearly asked for the negative and the positive. Look at the people already living there, he said. Tell me if they're strong. Tell me if they're weak. Tell me if there's a few of them or if there's a lot of them. Don't come back and paint a false report. I want to know the truth, Moses said. God's plan, or our plan, our lives, shouldn't be sheltered from facts. We should be strong enough to face reality head on and squarely and honestly. We need to look at the land, look at the goal, look at the project. Is it good or is it bad? I want to know what we're going to be fighting for. I want to know how the people live. I want to understand whether they're living in, flimsy places that aren't defensible, or if they've got fortifications. I want to know the enemy's position, and on the ground I'm going to be fighting. This is smart thinking. I want to know if the land is bountiful, well watered, or I want to know if it's lean and desert. I want to know what I'm fighting for. I want to know how much wood there will be. I want to know whether or not I can find enough to build with or I can't. I want to know about water supply and food sources and building materials. These things were among the negative report the 10 spies brought back. For this information, at least, they cannot be faulted because Moses wanted to know it. But they didn't just give the negative facts, did they? That's not what got them in trouble. The report wasn't wicked because it included the negative data. It was wicked because it added the data to that data, an expression of doubt, of disbelief. They not only went over there and looked at the land, which Moses wanted them to do, honestly and truthfully, both the negative and the positive, but they also came back and started talking about themselves and their neighbors and how weak we are and how unworthy we are and how incompetent and stupid we are and how we don't measure up and how we can never do this. Moses asked for information about the land. The land is the goal. He wanted to know about that. But the people didn't just talk about the land when they got back. Those 10 spies started filling their report with evaluations of themselves and their own weaknesses. I want you to look at the goal. Keep your eye on the goal. He never asked how the Israelites felt when looking at the enemy. Moses never asked them whether they felt they could take the land or not. He never asked for an assessment of their abilities. He didn't ask them to report that. He just asked for a report on the objective, what the goal is, what the land is, not what you are. What sense does it make to compare yourself to a mission before you even know what the mission is? These people, remember, they came out of Egypt. They had a slave mentality. They had a subdued, beaten, oppressed mentality already. They already didn't feel like they had much to offer. A lot of people walking around, they don't even know what the mission is, what the project is, what the goal is, what the plan is, and yet they feel they can't even do it yet. You don't know if you can do it. You don't even know what it is. But they just walk around feeling generally weak, generally down, genuinely undeserving, generally less, generally, unlovable, generally weak and powerless and having no options. There's no point in that. No one has no power. No one has no options. No one has no mind and no strength at all. Those spies didn't know what God was going to do, what Moses had planned. Don't defeat yourself by painting a bleak future when you don't know the future. Since when can you tell the future? I'm not saying there isn't danger. Moses knew there was danger. That's why he told them to go and go south and go up in the mountain in verse 17. He wanted to know. It was a dodge, it was a misdirection to make it look like they were coming from somewhere else. He had them go on a circuitous route to pretend and come into the land from another side because he knew there was real danger. So yeah, there's really an enemy. Since when was there not an enemy? Since when did the enemy become your primary concern anyway? Their expression of doubt was not the only information Moses never asked for. It was a direct disobedience of what he asked for. Look at verse 20. And what the land is, where it be fat or lean, whether it be good wood, whether there be wood therein or not, and be ye of good courage. Be courageous, be brave, be gutsy. Having a positive attitude goes a long way to arming yourself to dealing with a task. It's amazing what an ordinary man or an ordinary woman can accomplish if they go into even an unknown task, even one that seems big and seems to have all of these things working against them. But if they go in there, if they not even having a plan yet, but they go in there thinking, I think we can do this. I think I can handle this. I believe there's something I can do. And they throw themselves into it with passion and with determination. It's amazing the mountains that ordinary people can move and have moved. Verse 21. So they went up and searched the land from the wilderness of Zin unto Rehob, as men came to Hamath. And they ascended by the south and came unto Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the children of Anak, were. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. And they came to the brook of Eshcol, and cut down from thence a branch with one cluster of grapes, and they bare it between two upon a staff, and they brought of the pomegranates and of the figs. Early in the lesson, I was careful to say, that people who lose the will do so because they focus on the wrong information at first. That it's not incorrect at first. I said it that way because it will eventually lead to warped, incorrect information, a perspective that ignores the data. I want you to think about what these guys had just pulled off. They had walked into the land where supposedly were these insurmountable cities with these untold armies of people with giants all around. They had walked in, cut grapes, a cluster of grapes so massive it took 2 men to carry it, and somehow they walked back out again carrying clusters of grapes hanging on poles between them. If this land was so dangerous, if it was so impenetrable, and these giants were so threatening, how in the world did they manage to walk out with grapes they had just stolen from these guys? You're not going to prowl over the hillside with a big giant cluster of grapes it takes 2 men to carry. These things were proof that the land was worth fighting for, that was full of bounty. And it was proof that at some point they had the courage. They believed, and they just lost it. They just let worry and doubt and anxiety slowly creep in, despite what they had just pulled off. Verse 20, be of good courage as a part of the compound sentence, which also instruct them to bring back the fruit of the land. They were spies. They weren't local folks. They had to be brave to get that fruit. The whole time they're saying we can't stand up to the giants. Dangling from the pole between them is proof that the giants couldn't even stop these few spies. How do you sneak with that kind of proof? You don't. You do it with courage. You do it with guts. Proof that they already had what it took. Let me ask you today, what has got you worried and flustered and feeling like you just not sure if you're going to make it through? Number one, you don't know the whole mission yet. Don't be judging yourself incapable of a mission that you're not even familiar with. Number two, you've already done some amazing things. You've already climbed some mountains. You've already won some victories. You had the courage before. Remember, it's just a matter of claiming it and doing it and working for it. And it's amazing what you can do. You can do this. You can make it through. I love you. We will see you next Sunday. Until then, everyone who's sick, get well. Those of us who are gone, be safe and come back, in one piece and rejuvenated. We love you. We will see you soon. Bye.